So hi everyone, and so happy to have you here, Andrea, that you take the time to have the first edition of our Konvi X Perpetual Passion webinar. Yeah, should we do like a quick intro round up front to kick it off? So maybe to me, so I'm Lena, I'm co-founder of Konvi, and for those of you who don't know Konvi yet, Konvi is the first European-wide platform with the mission to democratize the access to high-end luxury assets for the broader population. And we partner with world-leading funds to allow our Konvi community to diversify their financial portfolio with luxury assets. And for now, it's mainly exclusive watches, but fine wine will also follow soon, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, because of that, super happy to talk luxury watches today with Andrea, because he's our expert from Perpetual Passion.
Thank you, Lena. Thank you for having me. Let me just give you some few words about Perpetual Passion. Perpetual Passion is an Italian website which speaks about watches. I am an editor and business developer in Perpetual Passion, and the aim of the website is to provide the most complete information about watches, a 360 degrees information about watches. So we want to go deep inside the stories behind the various models, the technical aspects, which are very important for the industry, of course, but they are always communicated in a really understandable way so that they can be enjoyed by all the people, even if they don't have an important technical background about them. So we want to have the most complete and interesting communication about watches at the highest possible level. This is our target, and this is what we like to do.
Perfect, super interesting. And yeah, as I said, great to have you here. We also collected a lot of questions up front, so thanks everyone who submitted their questions. And I think one of the questions that burns on everyone's mind is what are basically the main factors that affect how a watch is being valued? Because as you know, there's lots of watches in every price range. And what are actually the factors behind it that like a watch has a certain price?
Yeah, of course, it is not so easy to let people understand which is the real value behind the watch. But of course, there are some KPIs which can help people to understand it. First of all, we need to separate the two aspects. You do not need to consider properly which is the real manufacturing cost of a watch with respect to which is the retail price, because they are very different. Also because important maisons have a lot of costs which are not related to production. Keeping important boutiques in the most expensive and interesting places all around the world has a huge cost for them. So of course, inside the retail price of each watch, an important component of that comes from all the services and all the hidden costs which are not related to the manufacturing one. So to all the people that are listening to us, please do not really focus on this aspect, because it doesn't really show which is the real situation of a maison that is going to sell and manufacture watches. However, which are the aspects that can affect the value of a watch? According to me and to my experience along these years, there are 5 main KPIs that can affect it. First of all, the brand. The most important is the brand, of course. Generally, the most important is the value of a watch. Of course, the brand value is something that is built along the years. So if we speak about Rolex, all of us knows Rolex because it's 70 or 80 years that we see that advertisement here and there, their relationship with Formula One, with the most important tennis tournaments. So we used to see it, and we know it, as well as, for example, Patek Philippe. But a different story can be for Richard Mille, because it is just a 20 years brand with 20 years in watchmaking industry are absolutely nothing. But today they are very famous. So branding is important, but as you can see, we have two different aspects that can be evaluated. It is important, it is correlated with the story, but it doesn't matter that the story needs to be so long. The other KPI, which is very important according to me, is the history, of course, of the brand. The history and what they have done during their story. For example, the relationship with the Rolex and Daytona. It is really important, the relationship between Omega and the fact that they went on the moon using the Speedmaster. Also today we see the first watch on the moon, and Omega sells watches because they went on in space, on the moon substantially. So the history of the brand is important, but it is also important how they built up a story. Again, Richard Mille is a really young brand, but they are constantly building a story. And they are very coherent in that, for example, with their relationship with Formula One. The other important KPI is the technique behind it. A watch, first of all, is a mechanical expression, is an art, according to me, mechanical expression. So as more important is the technical content of the watch, the most valuable is the watch. A tourbillon watch is for sure more expensive than a common automatic watch, because the technical content is much more important on the tourbillon one. So the presence of complications, the presence of peculiar techniques to work manufacture the various dials, or for example the bezel, the case of the watch, how it is built. All of these are factors that can affect its value. A watch which shows some diamonds on the dial costs more with respect to the watch that it doesn't show it. It doesn't show them. So of course we never have to forget that watches are an expression of mechanics. Then the other KPI is the aesthetics. People need to like watch. Rolex is loved by people because they used to deal with it, for example, because the shapes are perfect. The quality of the feeling on the wrist is absolutely superb. And this is, of course, an incredible adding value. But on the other hand, a new brand, and not a new brand, but a new watch, for example, like the Octo Finissimo from Bulgari, it is not really understood by people. And its value is not exploded as for other brands, for example, even if it is an absolute superb watch. So the aesthetics needs to be liked by people, and it needs some time maybe to be liked by people. And finally, the latest KPI that can affect the value of a watch is the production. If you have an enormous production, of course, the value of a watch can't be so high with respect to a watch that is made in 5 pieces, 10 pieces, 50 pieces, because it is a matter of rarity. So to sum up, there are 5 main KPIs: the brand, the history, the technique, the aesthetics, and the production. Perfect. Of course, there are several other factors that can affect the value of the watch, but maybe can be summarized along this 5, or this 5 can really show a picture of the watch.
Yeah, definitely. No, super interesting, and also thanks for all the detailed description. Just one follow-up question there, because I think also like one of the points is probably also like how scarce they are, right? So how limited maybe the edition is.
Yeah, absolutely. The limited edition is, we can say, an arm that brands have in order to increase the value of their watches, because they limit the production, so they are quite sure that can maintain a certain value along the years. Of course, I forgot to mention it before. it doesn't mean that a watch it is limited, it is produced in a very high quantity, can't have an important value on the market with respect to retail price. Rolex is a clear example of this behavior. The Daytona or the Submariner, which are produced in 100,000 of pieces substantially, they have an incredible value on the market, even if they are produced in a so high number. Otherwise, there are extremely limited production of the watch, which are really maybe not understood by people. So it is not a matter of focusing on a unique KPI, but it is always a matter of keeping an overall view on all of them.
Yeah, cool. No, makes total sense. Perfect. Let's maybe move on to the next question. So that's also like a question I think that was submitted a few times on our Instagram poll, and it's about basically future outlook. So what would you say, as like a complete watch expert, what are like the trends, maybe not only in the future, but also like in the past? So 2020, 2021, also because 2020 was obviously like a bit of a different year for everyone with COVID. So what would you say are the current trends in the watch industry?
Okay, there are a lot of trends in watches because you need to understand that the overall production of the watchmaking industry in terms of different models is huge. So every brand has a lot of watches, so we can see a lot of trends. Lots of watches are bought by people because everyone has its own taste, So if a lot of people has the same one, you can have a trend, of course. But to summarize, we can say that in 2020, 2021, we have seen 3 trends. Of course, we are not just limiting our attention to them, but they are quite interesting to be mentioned. The first one, it is my favorite brand. It is Richard Mille. And if you go and check which are the market values, and compare them to retail price, you'll see an enormous explosion. Despite the really high retail prices of their watch, even if with the entry level we speak about 130, 140,000 euros, which is a huge amount of money for a watch, you see that the market value is 3 or 4 times this one. So it is incredible. And the people that are able to buy it, of course, are just a small percentage of the already limited watch aficionados that like the watchmaking industry. But it seems that the market is hungry about it, is hungry about Richard Mille. So Richard Mille is always a trend. The second trend I want to mention is it is quite funny, because it is the Oyster Perpetual from Rolex. Rolex presented, if I'm not wrong, more than a year or something more ago, presented the Oyster Perpetual, which is the entry level of their collection, with several different dials, really funny colors, a blue that reminds to the blue Tiffany, we can say. Then we have an orange that is similar to coral, a green one, and a yellow one. And we have seen an explosion of their value, because despite the retail prices of about 5,000 euros, so we can say accessible by a lot of people, the market value is 3 times it. So you think about 15,000 euros. And so this is to demonstrate that it is not so important to have just extremely expensive watches that are revalued a long time, but also quite cheap one. Of course, for mechanical watches, we're not speaking about the quartz movements and so on. We always speak about the mechanical movement. And the third trend, which we are seeing that is exploding, we can say, is FP Journe. FP Journe is a brand founded by Francois Paul Journe, which is of course still alive. He's still producing its watches. He's a real genius inside watchmaking industry. I had the opportunity to meet him, and it's an amazing man, absolutely. And he produces about 800 watches a year, so very limited production because he can't do anything more. But along the latest years, we have seen that his work that had been made, had been started in the 90s, is going to be revalued. His watches are extremely appreciated by people because they are very interesting, and technically speaking, they are very rich. And it's a pleasure for me to speak about FP Journe because his watches are really amazing. And I repeat it again, from the technical point of view, they are very interesting. So we are seeing, especially also in the auctions from Philips, Antiquorum, Christie's, etc. We are seeing very interesting performances on this kind of timepieces.
Nice. And what kind of range are they in terms of costs?
In terms of cost, the cheapest one starts around 20,000 Swiss francs or something more, maybe 25. So, of course, it is an important amount for a lot of people, but it is associated to the technical value that is added inside the watch, we can say.
Yeah.
And it arrives up to about $1 million or something like that, but because it is really a complex watch, really complex with a lot of astronomical complications. So it is difficult to be developed and difficult to be realized with the really small productions.
Yeah, super cool.
And of course, we have also the trends about Audemars Piguet and Patek Philippe, because they are extremely famous, and all of people which are not maybe interested in watchmaking industry know who is Patek Philippe, who is Audemars Piguet, which are the most important models, and so on.
Yeah, and we've also seen crazy spikes with their deprecating models last year, right? And I think you also have some graphs maybe that help everyone to visualize.
Yeah, I've prepared some analysis between the two. I share my screen immediately. Okay, as you can see, I've prepared some slides about the Audemars Piguet 15202 and the Patek Philippe 5711 1A. What does it mean? I am comparing substantially the most famous Audemars Piguet model. The 15202 is the 39 millimeters Royal Oak, with the Patek Philippe 5711 made in steel, which is the famous Nautilus, with a blue dial made in steel. So I am comparing two watches made in steel with similar productions, made by the most important brands of watchmaking industry, and of course designed by the same man, Gérard Gentat, in the 70s. So the watches that are sold today we can say, are the son of the original models designed by this man in the 70s. In 72 for Audemars Piguet and in 76 for Patek Philippe. First of all, I'd like to let you analyze which is the list price of this watch and how it has been increased along the years. As you can see, we have started with the analysis in the same year, which is 2013. And in 2021, so in 8 years, we are seeing an increase of the list price by more than 10,000 euros. So if you speak about inflations and so on, this is not justified. This is just because the brands have seen an important increase inside the market value, so they want to try to fight it. Because as soon as you have a list price which is comparable with the market price, you can deeply control which is control the demand and control who are you selling the watch to, substantially. You can make your customer happy because they want that kind of watch. But once you lose this kind of control, it becomes also difficult to say no to a lot of people and to a lot of possible customer, maybe also important customer. So this is of course an issue for brands, for the watchmaking industry maisons. If we switch to the analysis of these two watches, of the market trends, we can say, along the years, you can say that starting from 2013, we have seen an important increase up to 2020, quite constant, especially on the 5711, because Patek has, it was the brand that we can say guided somehow the market of sporty watches. But then with the pandemic, 2020 was a really complex year, as we know. We have seen quite a deep, not so deep, a slightly reduce in their prices. But then we have seen another important spike, maybe the most important spike that they have experienced. Why this kind of spike? Because 2 months one from the other, the respective brands announced that these watches will be out of production at the end of this year. This caused an important increase of the values, because all of the people started, and aficionados or investors and so on, started to desire this piece, because by going out of production, it means that no more watches would be made in future, and that the associated value can substantially increase. The market really wants these watches, and starting from the end of the year, no more watches will be available. So it is something which is in terms of rarity, even if we are not speaking about a huge rarity, because the overall production of the two watches is about 700 to 1,000 about pieces per year. So it is quite an important production, but not so important to satisfy the entire market. And as you can see, for Audemars Piguet in 2018 and for Patek Philippe in 2015, we have experienced that substantially they lost the control of the market value with respect to the list price. And by concentrating our attention on 2020, we've seen that in April, Audemars Piguet, or at least in March, so you have seen the important increase in April, the CEO of Audemars Piguet announced that by the end of the year, the 15202 will be out of production. And the same has been done by Patek Philippe in January, February. So you can see this important price increase. So we speak about 27, 28% by, around 35% by Patek Philippe, and more than 37% by Audemars Piguet. So huge performances done by this kind of watches.
Really, really cool. Like, I love the charts, and I think it's crazy to see how they developed. Like, it's super, super interesting, really. And I think this also goes really well with one of our next questions that we got submitted, which is about like these kind of spikes that kind of come if like a watch model is deprecated, and how far can these be anticipated? Is like someone like you able to anticipate them somehow, or is it really hard to tell for normal people?
Of course, if I say you that I am able to anticipate this kind of spikes, I will tell a lie, of course, because I do not have the crystal ball. It is the same of the stock market. We can say I can't predict that a certain company will make so important performances. What we can say is that a lot of similar watches are increasing their value due to some reasons. So we can guess that maybe a watch can increase its value, maybe because the production can end in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or because they have been designed by the same man, like Gerard Genta, and then the first one, the Audemars Piguet, increase its value. The Patek Philippe, in the 5711 increased its value. The 222 by Vacheron Constantin, designed by Gérard Gentat, has increased its value. Maybe the one that is missing, which is the IWC Ingenieur, can increase also its value in future. So, but they are only guesses, we can say. We can say that the most important parameter that I consider generally is when a watch is going to be out of stock and out of production. So, for example, the 5712 by Patek Philippe is in collection from 2006 with the 3712 and in 2007 with the 5712. So it's more than 15 years that this model is in the collection. So sooner or later, this model will be out of stock and out of production, but we don't know why. And by this consideration, its value is already really high.
Yeah, fair enough.
We can guess that, would you like it? Okay, you can pick it, keep it there, and maybe as soon as it will be declared out of stock and out of production, you will see an important spike.
Yeah, but it's really hard to tell like the time frame, right?
And what I want to mention on this topic, we can say that foreseeing spikes is very difficult. So first of all, let us concentrate on which product are we dealing with. So if we consider the 5 KPIs that I have analyzed at the beginning of this webinar, maybe you are able to have an overall overview of the situation of which model I am dealing with, and then you can make your guess. If you have a so important technical content, for example, for the Octo Finissimo of Bulgari, according to me, sooner or later, it will be appreciated because it is too interesting from several points of views. Of course, now the market is not able to understand it, but maybe in future it will be. Or it is exactly the same situation that the people experienced in the 70s when Gérard Gentat designed, for example, the Royal Oak. The Royal Oak at the beginning was absolutely not really appreciated because it was very expensive. It was a steel watch that was sold at the price of the gold one. But as you can see in the future, so in the future, I mean in the 90s, the 20s and 2010s and so on, you've seen an important increase in its value. So it is a matter of time. But the most important thing is that you see a certain content according to the KPIs I've presented you.
Yeah. No, fair enough. So I guess key takeaway for everyone is that it's really hard to anticipate, but you can definitely speculate on watches. And but if you do, and if you put them in your safe at home, or if you even wear them, you sometimes have to be patient, I guess, because it's not definitely happening in the next 1 to 2 years. Perfect. So then we have another question, which is, I think, quite interesting, and it's about the difference between a watch collector and a watch investor. So this is also something we, I think, also put have as a topic on our Konvi website, even in one of our blogs. But I think it would be super cool to hear from you, your opinion and your view on this.
Yeah, the watch investor is a character, we can say, that was born during these years, as far as I saw and according to my experience, because previously there were just watch collectors. Watch collectors, generally speaking, of course, were people extremely passionate about watches, which decided to have, for example, all of the models of a certain collection all the models with a certain characteristics, for example, divers, for example, some Panerais made in a certain amount of time. And they were extremely passionate about vintage watches, which have an incredible performances from the investment point of view. But I'm not an expert of vintage watches. I'm more focused on the modern one because I like them more. But vintage watches, you can see the various auctions, the various sold prices. They are absolutely incredible. So just in the latest years, where we experienced a so increase in the market values of some watches, also vintage one. A lot of people started to look at the watchmaking industry because they want to make money. They are free to do it. I can't say anything about it because it is a possibility that we have through our society. And so the same wanted to have as much as watches as possible because they want to make money on them. So they become to be investors. And the two figures of the collectors and the investor share some connecting points, we can say. Because, for example, both of them start to look at the rarity of watches, because rarity, as I mentioned before, can be one of the KPIs that can increase the values of watches. And but the only aim of the watch investor is just to make profits, despite their personal taste, or at least their personal taste is something which is less considered with respect to watch collectors, because watch collectors collect watches according, first of all, on their taste and their appreciation of some characteristics and so on. So the two figures share some characteristics, but of course are extremely different. Also because when you see a huge collector, I know some of them which are here in Italy, which are here in Milan and so on. They are extremely passionate people, and it's a true pleasure to speak with them and to listen to the stories behind their watches. It's a really huge pleasure if you have passion, substantially, and you can clearly see the difference between who has passion and who doesn't.
Yeah, I fully agree. I also think like the watch collectors are like super passionate about it, which is also like very nice to see. But then also because I just remember like something that Dominic Coe said once. So he's like the founder of the Watch Fund, and he also said like a watch collector is basically those that like collect them because of passion, and they hold on to them, and they would not just get rid of them because they're just highly priced at that time. But a watch investor is like they don't even care that much about the watch. They just care about the profit, and they just hold them in order to realize a profit at some point and in order to sell them again. And I think this is like the biggest difference, because if you're really into something, you wouldn't sell it. But if you're just doing it for the gains, then you're just waiting for the best time to sell again.
Yes, of course. And what I said before is, of course, just a general overview. Then as life teaches us, when you consider general overviews, you never consider the right cases that are affecting the various problem we are analyzing. So all of us are different, so they have our personality, they behave differently in different situations. So what I've done before was just a clear overview to let our participants to this webinar to have the understanding of which is the situation we are dealing with. But of course, it shall be analyzed in a more precise way according to the numbers, because numbers never lie.
Yeah, no, and it was perfect. I think it gave us a very, very strong overview. Cool. Then I think our final question is around, and I think it's also like a hard one, but like the correlation of watches in general and the stock market, or maybe even other asset classes. Do you have any insights on that?
Okay, I'm not an expert of stock market, so I'm not the right person to answer this question. Also because I do not have all the numbers in my hands in order to make a comparison between the two. And I do not have numbers to make a comparison of if a performance of a certain watch can affect the stock value of, for example, LVMH Group or Swatch Group and so on. I don't know if Swatch Group is quoted somewhere in the world, LVMH for sure. So, or Richmond, for example. So I do not know it, honestly speaking. What I can say is that if you're going to have we can speak about profits and speak about the performances of a stock title with respect to a watch, what I can say is that the watch has generally more constant performance. So you do not see huge spikes as it happens on the stock market, and their value is much more constant in time. Of course, you can experience some spikes as I have demonstrated before. You have seen a huge increase of the value. We don't know if you'll see also a huge decrease of the value. But at least we have seen a huge increase. But before this kind of spike, the trend was much more regular.
Yeah.
So this is the main difference that we can experience between the stock market and the watch values.
Yeah. Perfect. So I think we kind of covered most of the questions, or like basically every question that was submitted to our poll. So thanks so much, Andrea, for responding to all of those. I don't know, just maybe for those who are already kind of into watches, or who are in general interested into learning more about how to diversify your financial portfolio with watches. Maybe check out Konvi. Maybe it's an interesting platform for you. And I just wanted to give a quick overview of how Konvi works just at the end. So basically through Konvi, basically everyone, so you and everyone, can buy shares from 250 euros onwards of, let's say, a limited edition Patek Philippe watch that is actually worth more than 250,000. So we really focus on like those very expensive watches on the platform. And because we are actually able to source these watches below retail price through our partners, the watches will have a pretty high value appreciation potential from the very beginning. And then the kind of model works in a way that we that we store the watch with our partners, and then after a predefined period of usually 2 to 5 years, the watch will then be sold to a network of watch collectors again, and all the profits will be distributed to everyone who bought shares of the watch initially. So that's Konvi in a nutshell, but please feel free to check out our platform. And I think it also, it kind of maybe also underlines again like the difference between like people who invest in watches because of the profits, and then the other side of like watch collectors, even though they kind of meet in the middle, because like how we work with our partner, he enables also watch collectors to access certain watches that they wouldn't be able to access before. So it's kind of, in that sense, a win-win for everyone. But I don't know. I hope that gave you a quick overview. And Andrea, I don't know if you want to add anything else.
No, nothing more. Your reality, your app is absolutely really interesting, and I'm monitoring. I want to see how far you can go, and I wish you the best for this kind of initiatives, which is absolutely and one of them, we can say, the next big thing in watchmaking industry, because no one has ever done something like that. So I wish you the best.
Thank you so much. And we're also happy to continue our collaboration with your analysis. So stay tuned. We will also publish more articles of Perpetual Passion on our Konvi blog. And I think Perpetual Passion is like a great website. And for those of you who don't speak Italian, they have also English articles.
Thank you a lot.
then yeah, I would say thank you so much for your time. It was a great talk. I hope it was helpful and useful for everyone. If you have any follow-up questions, people, just feel free to comment under the video or ping me or Andrea via our email addresses of the websites. And yeah, looking forward to see all of you for the next webinar.
Thank you a lot, Lena, for having me. It was a huge pleasure. And thank you for all the listeners connected on this webinar. So bye-bye, have a nice day.
Perfect, thank you.